Hey, Nathan, can you hear me?
Hey Jared, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Can you hear me okay?
I am doing well. I can hear you just fine.
Great.
Happy Thursday.
I know I can't hardly even keep up anymore. It's ridiculous. I felt like Monday all week. I swear this is the fourth Monday this week.
I hear you, and it's really funny because by the end of the day, what's up, man?
Hi, Jared, you're actually spiking. Your audio's really loud.
Okay. Let's see here.
Yes, your audio's like almost distorted because it's extremely loud.
Let me see what I can do to change it here.
What are you using as your audio source?
Just my microphone on my computer.
It's extremely sensitive right now. I don't know if you have gain controls or anything like that on your computer.
Yeah, let me see if I can go in here and tweak it. Sound settings. How about that?
Yeah, it's like maybe your output volume is maybe too loud.
How's that? Is that any better? Oh, wait, hang on.
So whatever you adjust, make sure you refresh and then come back into the room so they can take effect.
That's my master volume. How do I adjust something on my microphone?
Is it PC or Mac?
It's a PC.
I mean, it's not gonna be the end all be all, but it was just like I had my volume maybe like halfway, and it's like you literally jolted me out of my seat because it was just wow.
Uh-oh.
So people can just adjust and turn down, but Nathan, if you'll go ahead and talk, just say testing 1, 2, 3.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
See, so he's extremely low just to compensate for your volume. So everyone else is fine, but yeah, yours is.
Hi, Rosa.
Hey, I'm on.
So
How
just
are
try
you?
refreshing, Jared. Just refresh your browser and then just come back in.
Actually, how about that? I found a way to turn it down.
So refresh. So keep those settings, but refresh your browser and then come back in.
Okay.
Nice to meet you, Rosa.
Same
How are
here.
you?
It's my pleasure.
How's your week been?
Oh, pretty hectic. Really hectic. We're doing good. We're an economic development firm, so when there's a recession, we're in demand.
Busy.
Yes.
Real busy. Hi, Tam.
Hi, everybody.
Good to see you.
Hey, Tam.
Hi, Rosa. How are things?
Good. They're really good. We've been busy.
Good. Nathan, you?
I'm doing well, although I have a little bit of a predicament because I just discovered that my wife opened a box of Girl Scout cookies without telling me, and now I just feel like I need to know why I wasn't consulted. Feeling a little hurt.
I lost the. It's just a madhouse here all the time. I wanted to say hi to the young man running audio and tech in the production team, but I'm sure he's in the background.
Yeah. They're doing a great job running this. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I've never been to a conference that's been run this well digitally. This is great.
Yeah, I'm familiar with some of his work, and I've only heard good things about it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really good. So it looks like we got about 9 people with us right now. I'll go ahead and wait another, I don't know, 2-3 minutes or so, and we can get started. That sound good?
Nathan, is this any better or am I still crazy loud?
You're like slightly distorted, but it's better than it was before.
Okay.
I would say
I'm going to try to tweak that. I'll go try to tweak that setting one more time.
Yeah, I think it sounds better than it did last time. I am going to go get some water real quick, and I will be right back. Can I get anybody anything? No?
Thanks
Okay.
for my water.
I will be right back.
How about that, Nathan? Is that any better?
Much better.
Much better. Yep.
Yes, I figured it out. All right.
There we go. There we go.
Good.
I've got, I just recently got an external mic that I plugged in, and now the thing is I have to always make sure that the setting is correct, because it could be my AirPods, it could be my laptop, it could be the mic. So it's a lot, you know?
Yeah.
All these, like, I feel relatively comfortable with tech, but I have had some very steep learning curves the last year.
No kidding. No kidding. First, is everybody else on, or is it just us right now?
No, everybody else is on. We got 16 people here. If you look up in the top, I don't know if y'all can see it, but there'll be there's a little eye icon, and it says 16 right now. 17. So I guess, you know, whenever Tam gets back, I think we can go ahead and get started.
Yeah, I'll definitely reiterate what Rosa was saying. I've been a part of a couple of different platforms to do these kinds of virtual conferences, and I felt like this one has gone very well. I feel like it's been a really good platform for doing this on.
Yeah, I went to one of the, you know, tech sort of previews, and I was kind of blown away.
Yeah.
I've been to some others. I did a conference in, I guess it would have been October, where it was you actually built avatars, right? So, and then you would walk, right? You had to download this platform, and then you would walk from the visitor center to the main stage, and then they have like side stages, and you had to walk to them, and it was just so weird. Cool, but really kind of disorienting. You know, you'd like walk up onto the stage, and you'd like do whatever the keyword thing was to sit down, and then randomly, because nobody knows what they're doing because it's brand new, somebody in like the front row would just stand up and turn around and just stay that way, like their avatar would do that. Oh, so fun. I feel like we're all learning so much these days.
Yes.
So, all right. Well, this is going to be rather casual, and I'm really excited for this conversation. I'm the moderator. I guess we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Nathan Ryan. I am the CEO of Blue Sky Partners. We work with organizations of any kind to help them scale in sustainable ways, or deal with major periods of change. And I'm a city commissioner here in Austin. This session is focused on the role of small business and entrepreneurship in supporting healthy food systems. This is a breakout. We're going to keep this rather casual. I have some questions for y'all. If you have things that you want to add that somebody else says, or you want to ask a question of one another, let's go ahead and do that. But we're going to center on food businesses and entrepreneurial programs that will have long-lasting implications on issues like food scarcity, and have the potential to make some real headway to create intergenerational wealth in previously marginalized neighborhoods and regions. And so I'm so excited to talk with the three of y'all today. So if you don't mind, let's just go ahead and get started. We'll do a quick round table, starting with you, Rosa. Just give us a real quick primer on your organization, what you do, and then if you wouldn't mind, tell us a little bit about tell us one way that you've had to adapt personally as a leader over the last year. So a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your organization, and one way you've had to adapt over the last year.
Great. So I'm the CEO of Business Community Lenders of Texas. We're a statewide nonprofit lender. We're a CDFI. We're chartered by the Treasury as a lender. And so we do business lending, we do entrepreneurship, and we have other loan products for families. The one way that I have had to adapt personally is I've had a study in my home for years. When my daughters went to college, I moved in and moved the bedroom out and made it into my study. But I didn't maximize and utilize it. And I had to put up a sign on the door to keep my husband out. He's retired and he thought, she's home. She's here to hang out with me. I'm retired. And I had to use that sign and adapt with him and stick to my focus and just have to turn it and say, I'm busy and I'm working and you can't come in here. So it's been adjusting. It's been fun. I'm in the office right now. I'm starting to come back a few more days to the office, but the adoption has been more on staying focused and getting my work done even while I'm at home.
I completely hear you on that. I wish my dogs could read so that I could put a sign up like that and they would know not to bother me. We might hear a little bit from them here today, but thank you so much, Rosa. This is going to be a really fun conversation. Jared, let's go with you. So you remember that 3 or you need me to repeat it?
Yeah, so a quick introduction of who I am and about Foodshed Investors. So Foodshed Investors is at its core, we're an impact angel network. So we have a group of angel investors that we've assimilated, but we've kind of grown into also an advisory firm. So basically the idea is that we bring business expertise as well as funding to play the pollinator role all throughout the food system. We started out here in Central Texas. We kind of expanded through Texas, and now we take on a couple of projects around the country, working on regional food systems across the country. But all of our work is around supporting for-profit entrepreneurs, doing good things within their regional food system to bring the supply of good, clean, healthy food to their system and build a more robust system. So like I said, we started doing that with just the investing piece, but we quickly realized, much like I'm sure Rosa realizes with the CDFIs, the money's really not the problem. It's really more kind of the networking, the pollinator aspect, and the advising and the help. So we kind of evolved a bit to add more of that. COVID's been a crazy ride. Given that we work throughout the entire food system, so all the way from on-farm inputs to production to aggregation and wholesale and distribution and retail, and then waste recovery and composting and recycling, throughout the whole system, it's a pretty diverse system. And so COVID had its impacts on that entire system differently. So like on the retail and hospitality side, they have been just trying to keep their heads above water. Whereas on the wholesale and aggregation side, they're just trying to keep up with demand. And so it's been a really weird place to be having multiple clients, some of which are just trying to figure out how to get the next PPP round to stay in business. And the other is saying, oh my gosh, my revenues have quadrupled in 2 weeks. What in the world do we do now? How do we staff up quick enough? So it's been really interesting seeing how that works. And it's been a real learning experience for us to figure out how to work with and provide support to those different groups at different phases. Usually you have to go through long cycles to kind of see how to deal with these different things, but we're really seeing all these different stresses at different points at the same time and really being able to adjust to how we help folks through that. So it's been a real crash course, but we've learned a lot. It's been interesting.
Yeah, wow. I'm sure. Absolutely. I mean, everything all at once, right?
Yes.
Definitely. Well, thank you, Jared. Tam, how about you? And so good to see you.
Good to see you too. You wanted the personal part of how COVID-19 has impacted us, correct?
Yes.
Okay, just clarifying.
Or a bit, yeah.
Or a bit of both. I can do both.
Yeah.
And so, my name is Tam Hawkins, and I'm the CEO of the Greater Austin Black Chamber. We have a focus on the Black market here in Austin and growing, and in Central Texas and growing Black business. We have a little over 450 members. We are a small percentage of Black folks here in the Central Texas region, roughly about 6% here in Austin and in the Metroplex. And I'm sorry, I'm a Dallasite, so I say terms like Metroplex. And so we expand that region, and those numbers tend to increase when you include the 5-county reach. COVID, much like for Rosa, I unfortunately cannot put a sign on my door because I have children. So they're not reading a sign. And just a moment ago, they thought I was doing this call, and the older one goes, "She's in a call," and the other one's like, "I don't care. I didn't do that." And I'm like, thank God I'm not on the call. So you may or may not see them. I've since stopped apologizing for it because, they live here. And but that has been an adjustment to humanize, I think, our leaders now, right? That we are all balancing the same struggle. And I think I am keenly aware of how privileged I am to be able to make the choice to work from home. And some others don't have that opportunity.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, this is a family-friendly program, so bring the kids in if they want to. Everybody remembers, I'm sure, that gentleman who was being interviewed on some financial program, and his kid walks in the back, and that was like a big thing, and now that's just every day, and it's so fun. And another thing I meant to throw out there actually is, if anybody has questions that's viewing, that's here hanging out with us, feel free to throw them into the chat. We'll get to them as quickly as we can. For now, Rosa, I'd love to go back to you for a second. Can you tell me about some of the resources, a little bit more about some of the resources, lending programs, coaching, and classes that BCL put together to help them navigate this? I mean, like we were saying, this is everything all at once, right? How did your own organization have to pivot to provide those things, communicate those things, keep people up to date on guidance? I myself applied for a PPP, and I remember the SBA would change guidance, 4 times a day. It felt like sometimes, and change forms. And so how did y'all pivot yourselves to provide those resources?
Well, one of the advantages of being statewide is we were already used to working remote and working with conference calls and Teams meetings. We pivoted very quickly by having all of our cell phones set up to where our landlines would go straight to our phone line. So people would call us at home, and we answer with our cell phone, and they think you're still in business, which is very good. But because of the extent of the demand for economic development, for capital, for grants, we received some large contracts to administer the Thrives program for Travis County, to administer a CARES program for Pflugerville and some other communities. And so that created just an enormous amount of volume and work, and we had to add 10 staff. So it's really common in our industry, in economic development and in lending. You're in demand when there's an economic recession, and bankers aren't making those loans. Customers are, they have to pick and choose. Do I want a loan or do I want a grant? And oftentimes they want that grant. So we were completely overwhelmed. We had a team handling those calls. We handled, I would say, over 10,000 calls, holding the hand of those customers that were applying for the Thrive funds, holding the hand of customers that were left out of PPP because their bank wasn't there for them. And I would say that our brand is customer comes first. And so that's why we added the staff. We worked extensive hours. And while all of the staff were doing direct service, I was doing grant applications for more capital. So I'm excited. I just got 2 banks to tell me this week that we're getting about close to $3 million for lending. And then I have 2 applications in, one for an additional $2 million and another for $4 million. Some of that money will be for businesses of color. And so our board has made a firm commitment to work with businesses of color, continued relaxing some of those guidelines. So we were extremely overwhelmed. I was on the capital side, applying for that capital, and my staff on the direct service to the customers. I would say, you know, we were working long, long hours. I remember I just felt like crying sometimes because the work was so overwhelming, but it was very rewarding. And I heard that again and again, how rewarding it was to work with our small businesses. So we have not been doing our entrepreneurship series. Typically, we do that with a host bank. And so that got brought in-house. What we did do working with Travis County, within about 6 weeks, we provided over 200 businesses with continuity plans. Nobody was doing that. When you're using some of the CARES money, it's here's the grant, good luck to you, bye. Here's another one, good luck to you, bye. We negotiated in our contract that the second part of the grant with Travis County Thrive was actually counseling businesses on how to keep their doors open. We're the only CDFI that was doing that. And so it was extremely exciting that our staff could do that. So we've enjoyed it, and we continue to stay busy, and the capital is starting to come in.
That's fantastic. And, you know, I think everyone, especially business owners through this pandemic, realized very quickly how important it was and how possible it was to have an actual relationship with a banker or a financial institution, and to not have to just talk to the wall that is Chase Bank. And go ahead, Tam.
No. I'm sorry. I just wanted to talk about how amazing Rosa and her team are. And when she says they put the customers first, she really means it. When the second round came, she personally sent emails to me and a lot of the chamber leaders to make certain that we were aware. And thank God we were already aware, but just that it was so thoughtful. So I wanted to publicly thank you for that, and making certain that our members had access to a second round of funding too. So I didn't mean to overtalk you.
No, absolutely. I am the least qualified person to be talking here. I want you all talking as much as possible. So, I guess with that, Jared, I'd love to learn a little bit more from you. What did you see on the ground as an investor when COVID-19 hit? How did you observe food-related projects, or these regions that you're working with? How did you observe them shifting or adapting to meet community needs? I moderated a session earlier focused on food justice and infrastructure, and how food justice is kind of an empty phrase if the infrastructure is not there and if we're not investing in the infrastructure. So what were some of the more interesting or innovative investments that you've had the opportunity to at least observe, or that you've had the opportunity to make yourself?
Well, I'll be honest, things especially back for probably the first 6 months of COVID, things on our end kind of ground to a halt. We took a pulse of the investor base, early on, and said, hey, if things still come in through the door, do you still want us to get them together? Do you still want us to present them to you? How are y'all feeling from the investment side? And most of them said, I think I'm gonna hit the pause button for a minute and kind of see how this thing goes. So, just like everybody, I think a lot of the capital kind of seized up. Right. We saw that as an opportunity, because then we got to kind of kick into gear what we're kind of best at, and that is to play, again, that pollinator role. And that is, we realized early on that our source of capital from our angel investors was only one source, probably the most expensive source, and usually not the best source of that capital. And so we've always felt that. We've always operated with that understanding, but it really kind of came to bear early on in the early days, was that, our capital was completely removed from the equation, but the needs were still there. So we got even better at reaching out to other lending partners. Again, the availability of capital is never the problem. It's there. It's not getting to the right people in the right ways, but it's the amount of capital is really never the problem. There's plenty of capital in the system. And so working through that it's been really good for us to kind of build some more partnerships to go help enable more. Basically, we see ourselves as kind of a placer, right? So people from within the food system come to us as, where do I go to find capital for my food system project? And we see ourselves as kind of like, well, we'll take a look at it, see what's the best fit, and say, well, this is a great fit for you. There's a grant here, or this low interest FSA loan, or City of Austin even has some things that will be available to you,
right,
and find the right match there for you. So we kind of shifted the way that we did our investing, if you will. We did more capital enablement than actual capital deployment, really, through this whole thing. But the one thing that I will touch on that this has really brought home is at FI, we've always tried to point out the difference between investing in a company and investing in a system. And so you can invest in a company that helps the system as a whole, or you can invest in a company that does absolutely nothing for the system as a whole. It's just a company that works within that system. And so I think that COVID has really had us all probably become way more attuned to what the system components are and what the impacts upon that system are. So, investing in infrastructure is a perfect example, right? So investing in infrastructure to support the system, as opposed to investing in a company that utilizes that infrastructure as part of that system. So one may be a great investment from a monetary standpoint, but it does absolutely nothing to actually impact the system and the issues within that system. So where, we feel like we've always kind of been raising the flag and banging the hammer on that distinction, but nobody's really ever gotten it quite as much in the broad public, I should say. Most of us, everybody on this call and whatnot, we understand that. But I think in general, people didn't see that. But I'm really hoping that now that we've seen the stresses to the system that lacks of infrastructure have brought, then I'm hoping that people will understand better now, how do I invest in a system rather than just investing in one component of it that pretty much operates independently and doesn't do better for the all. So that's probably been the biggest thing that I've seen, and the biggest change in kind of the way that folks are viewing some of this stuff. I really hope it sticks.
Absolutely. I'm going to want to go back to the idea of food system here in a little bit and talk a little bit more about all of that. But for now, Tam, the Greater Austin Black Chamber supports all kinds of businesses, but restaurants and hospitality, entertainment, groups like that were hit extra hard during this pandemic. I'm curious whether you focus on that specifically or not. I'm personally curious about that aspect of things here in Austin, given that so much of our economy is in those areas. But regardless, what were you hearing from business owners at the chamber at the beginning of this pandemic? And what are some great, interesting stories about how you've watched entrepreneurs pivot and innovate this year?
There's so many wonderful, fantastic stories. And kind of a side note, I pitched a story in the middle of the summer, and unfortunately the civil and racial justice unrest overshadowed the news cycle and it didn't get out. So I'm glad I get an opportunity to talk about it a little bit here. But initially, what happened with Black business in this area, we already kind of knew, because we already knew the holes and the disparities and some of the systemic issues. And I really loved how Jarrett talked about how he supports businesses, and it was like a love language for me. I was like, yes. And so, but they were stunned, nervous, but they were also resilient, right? So they found ways to collaborate and get together and figure out pain points. And what did you do? And how did this work? Did you use this platform? And then we had some corporations that had good social statements and work, and they offered discounts to our members to help them integrate on payment, digital payment platforms easily and remove some of their fees. And so initially, we were looking at a 50 to 60% closure in business rate. And so we were all just holding our breath. That number has gone down quite a bit. We're under 40%. And I know that doesn't seem like something to be excited about, but we'll take it. And so, but the entertainment and live venue, they were hit the hardest. Obviously, couldn't rebound as quickly, but we have a lot of food services and professional services. So professional services increased like just crazy. Back to Rosa's point, it just shot off the charts for them. But food was able to hold the line a lot better. Was that helpful in answering your question?
Absolutely. And, I think for me, something that I would love to kind of drill down on and just kind of open the floor to is, are there specific stories, of very individual projects that you've seen, you know, really, really engage at a systems level, or at a community level in a way that you think is going to probably continue after this, right? I mean, I think there are so many things, this pandemic has exposed and exacerbated a lot of these inequalities, but at the same time, it's also produced a lot of really incredible innovations that I think are going to stick around, and so I'd love to hear if anything, specific comes to mind. I'd love to hear about those specific projects, and you don't have to name names or anything like that.
But I want to, because our entrepreneurs, they don't get a lot of shine all the time. They don't get a lot of, so I want to. Joyce, our very own Joyce Chevalier, what she did with understanding and recognizing there was a gap, and getting access to food to certain populations, because our government none of us ever had to do this before. And so recognizing that, Hope Green over at Emojis, how she was able to help food trucks figure out their bottom line. And she shared that with our members on a panel. And I think Joy might have also been on that same panel. And then there's another story that I like, that especially during the racial justice movement this summer, there was a barbershop that Kane's Barbershop, some of you may or may not know it, on the east side, and it experienced a fire. And so another chamber, sister chamber, the LGBTQ chamber, reached out to me and said, hey, I've got a member that wants to help, give them free space and give them equipment and give them all these things. And that was the story that I pitched. And I was like, this is such a good story, because right now, that's awesome. You have this business that's Black owned and this business is white owned, and we tend to look at things in a binary fashion, and it's not always so, right? And so, so that was another good story. There's so many more, and I could talk about, they're like my children, so I could talk about the businesses forever. Yeah, it's necessary to hear those stories right now, I think, to hear about people that are showing that kind of love to one another. I mean, I guess I think that's what it is, right?
Well, it's part of your community benefit.
Yes.
Your community contribution, and we saw a lot of that as well. Some of our restaurant businesses wouldn't close because they wanted to still keep their employees. And we had other restaurants who would donate food. They had that excess inventory, and so they would donate it. It's been a very interesting, stressful, but very beneficial time.
Right, and like you said earlier, Rosa, and Jared, we'll go to you. Like you said earlier, Rosa, you were able to create some real connections with new customers and help them, understand the financial world, which is, I think, sometimes intentionally made to be confusing. So I think you probably made a lot of really good longtime customers through this.
We hope so. We call it the PCL promise.
That's awesome. I love it. Jared, sorry, I cut you off.
Oh, no, you're fine. I was actually going to piggyback on what y'all are saying. I can just speak from experience. One of the projects that we helped do here in the city of Austin was the neighborhood pop-up grocery program. And I think, we naively had in our mind how this thing was going to go. And I know at least for me personally and for the NPUG team, it was very enlightening to go through that project and see that, the idea was, let's take these restaurants that are in food insecure communities, primarily in the Eastern Crescent, and let's provide grocery staples to them to provide to the communities immediately around their restaurants. It's kind of a micro distribution model. Just like everything, me coming from the way that I view and experience things, I was like, makes perfect sense, right? Why wouldn't this work? And so it was a real eye opener for me, as well as our restaurant partners, when we launched the program and there was no acceptance from the communities with which they were housed in. And I think it was a real eye opener. One, for us, it was one of the most transformative things that has come out of this COVID thing for me personally. But I do know that a lot of the restaurant partners that we worked with, it really exposed the fact that they were not connected with their immediate community, especially restaurants, on the east side and throughout the whole Eastern Crescent. Is like, because we're like, well, hey, do this and then you can get the community or whatever. And they're like, and they tried, but they just had no connection to their community. And that just really exposed that. And I think it was something that was hard for a lot of them to really, it didn't sit well with a lot of them because they kind of considered themselves part of this community, right? Because of geographic location. But it quickly pointed out that they were not a part of that community just because of geographic location. And I really hope that more of that blending maybe will come out of all of this. I really hope that realization will lead to more of that and some dissolving of that difference. That's been probably the biggest takeaway.
Well, and there's so much of this that I've observed with my commission work or my work with Blue Sky that, I feel like when you talk about a systems level problem, and I do want to go back to this in a second, but when you talk about a systems level problem, trust, whether that's trust in one another, trust in local state government, trust in institutions, trust in, all these things. Those bonds have been frayed in a lot of ways in the last, however many years, if people even had trust in any of those institutions at all. And there's lots of reasons for some folks, especially Black and brown communities, to not have trust in those institutions. But I think it has also given us an opportunity to really realize, like you said, that we've got to double down on that, and if you're going to be part of a community, you got to be part of the community, because sometimes you may not even be able to really help people when your intentions are pure, if the community doesn't know that you mean it and you're not, so I think that's great. I've learned that humbly. I have learned that quite a bit as well over the last year.
So one of the things that we did, Nathan, if I could, is as we were messaging about the Travis County grant program for small businesses, we were messaging in Spanish TV, and we actually went door to door with our COVID masks on and our disinfectants, because we found there was a disconnect. A lot of the Latino entrepreneurs were not connecting on social media. They didn't even know about the program because they're busy working their store. And so we had to actually get out there and assure them that the programs were real, that the grant dollars were going to be exactly that, grant money. But, even though we're a high-tech town and very strong in networking and social media, that doesn't work in some communities. And so we had to make extra efforts.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. I think so many system level challenges and communications is absolutely one of them too. Not only which channel you're going to go through, but how many different languages. Austin has a quite large, Asian Pacific Islander community. We've got, a large community of, or a large number of Hispanic residents as well. All of these things, I think, play into how hard it can be to communicate all of the things that are. I remember, Tam, I'd love to hear your experience with this, but I felt like the first 6 weeks of this, I think through the commission and through Blue Sky, I probably heard about like 100 different programs. I feel like everybody spun up a resource center, everybody spun up some kind of support thing. How did the chamber centralize all of that? How did you think about centralizing it and communicating it?
So we quickly realized that our role changed. And so we ended up being this a warehouse for all of this information. So we were just keeping up. Rose was laughing. It is true. It was just a time to keep up with all of the information at one time. So we ended up becoming an information center. We realized immediately that the best thing that we could do is become this information center times 10. We already were heavy in content, but we ended up having to tell people which bills to prioritize. Here's here's how you do this. Here's what you do. Here's some financial planners that are willing to donate their time. So we ended up just being this warehouse for information, which was vital, and something I can't remember which of my esteemed panelists said this, but what we also realized, that community and that knowing your chamber and knowing your chamber staff was literally the difference between you keeping your doors open or closed. And not just my chamber, it was other chambers around here. It was because they could tell you, here's who's processing PPP loans. Go over here. Here's, and we could tell you that here's who's giving rebates on this or discounts and structuring to help you with your cash flow, right? And so that's what we ended up becoming, and putting the entrepreneurs in a room together so they could collaborate and discover was also pretty profound as well.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
I'll jump in there and just say what you just described is the absolute epitome of entrepreneurship, right? It's pivoting and adapting to whatever is thrown your way at that given time, And so that's a perfect example to go back to what we're talking about.
I'm a third generation entrepreneur, so it's kind of just in my blood. So
it's fantastic. I feel like everyone, whether they wanted to be or not, this year became a little bit of an entrepreneur in one way or another. Even if it was just learning how to set up a home office, or I bought a printer last week because I don't know. And, getting back to my entrepreneurial roots, trying to figure out how to set up office equipment even. Anyway, okay. So this is a conference about equity, and this is a question for everybody. So for whoever wants to jump in with this one first, feel free to. My question is, in what ways do you think that this pandemic really exposed and maybe exacerbated some of these inequalities related to funding and wealth disparities? And then what kind of work have you seen being done that you think is not just a good bumper sticker, but is actually going to be helpful to close those gaps? That's my question.
Well, the smaller the business, the tighter the cash flow, and there were no reserves. And so that demonstrates inequity. That demonstrated to us the lack of capacity, and that going to a seminar may not mean that you built capacity. So one of the things that we participated in during these last 10 months is we're part of a group called the Austin Small Business Ecosystem. And we're several nonprofit small business resource organizations. And we decided to, instead of working in silos, we let's start collaborating more. We can do more for our small business community. We created some working groups on building capacity. We created another work group for access to capital. We created another group on getting our demographics. What is our small business market? And we decided that the definition of small business that SBA has, 500 employees or greater, doesn't work for us. In our ecosystem, small business, Austin area small business ecosystem, small means 100 employees or less. And so we kind of took advantage of the opportunity. We're still working in committees. We haven't rolled out and made our findings public yet. We're hoping to do a convening later this spring. But it was through that process that we've been discussing maybe an application for personal financial statements is too messy if there's no stocks and bonds in this small entrepreneurs. They don't have retirement funds. And maybe we need to create a simpler, easier way to apply for capital. And perhaps the capital that we want to find is going to be a lot more fluid. It can be enterprise, wherever your business needs the money. And so there's a lot that we found out, but the inequalities exist. We knew they were there, but they were exacerbated, and the need is quite high.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the companies that my consulting firm works with, Blue Sky, they tend to be 150 or less, but our average is about 25 employees. And I think it's been really good for the finance and broader business community to I think shift more towards those truly small businesses, right? I mean, they are the ones that usually get hit hardest for the very reason you described, and that was that cash flow is hard, and reserves are almost non-existent. So yep,
and the capacity
absolutely.
isn't there. So not everybody went to UT and has an MBA. They
Right.
don't. And so
Right.
if they don't have accounting skill sets, if they don't have an HR department, if they don't have an IT department, and they don't, then how are we building that capacity for these smaller entrepreneurs of color? And so
Right.
there's big
Yeah.
challenges, but I think that we're on the right track with this Austin area small business ecosystem.
Absolutely. I'm not a panelist, but I'll say that Blue Sky, the thing that we did the most work on in the last 12 months has been developing essentially what is just a dashboard focused on cash flow. When do you run out of money? That's the whole thing. That's the project, and that's the most helpful thing I think for many entrepreneurs, is just knowing you can sleep better at night if you've got 30 days of cash flow compared to just not knowing. Or if you have 120 days, that's obviously even better. You can sleep even better. But just knowing what your cash flow rate looks like is a huge, huge plus. So agreed. All right. So anybody else have something to add on that? We have about, just as far as time check goes, we've got about 17 minutes before we're going to go listen to Joy Chevalier close us out. And so if anybody that's here watching has questions, feel free to throw them in the chat and we'll jump to them. But for now, what kind of work is being done that you think is actually good work to close some of these longstanding inequalities and wealth disparity? Oh, I think you are muted, Tam.
I say I'm the queen, but I'm really not. I'm always muting myself for the kids.
I saw a mug earlier this week that said you're on mute. It's a coffee mug.
I love
so
it. I need that.
I'll send that to you.
In my life. So I think what the bad news is that COVID-19 happened. The good news is that we get to do some things differently, right? We don't have to go back to the same old thing that we've always done. So I think in certain areas it exacerbated the inequities and inequalities, but we were in a unique time in history where we all got to see. And I don't remember how they've been doing this work for a long time. My
30
organization,
years.
30 years. We've been around 40 plus years. So we already knew that and we've been saying this year after year after year. So, but the unique part about this time in history is that we all got to see it at the same time. We all got to be hyper-focused on it and go, wow, this really is happening. So it was much harder to deny the realities of certain people. So what I think for us, we focused a lot on health lately, and we've been doing that for the past couple of years. So we need to see some policy changes in health. Small business owners need access to good health care, because if you don't have health, you can't do anything else. It doesn't matter what your reserves are. It doesn't matter what your financials look like.
Right.
It doesn't. You can't. And for us, a lot of our small business owners, we're sole proprietors and they're only employee. Yeah. So if they get sick, everything stops. And so, and I don't think any of us want to have that as a reality as a city, right? Mm-hmm. And so to see that, I think that some wonderful work in terms of investment being done for businesses of color is great right now. I think that, again, the bad thing is that 2020 happened. The good thing is people are beginning to rethink some of those investment dollars. looking at Black and Latino and Asian businesses differently. Asian businesses don't suffer some of the same financial challenges as Black and Latino businesses do. Not to say that they don't have their own, it's just a different, we tend to be more cash strapped. And I'm looking at big corporations. I think part of your question was who's doing the work, and not just, I call it putting in the Black banner on their Facebook page, like who's actually doing the work. And there's some that are doing incredible work. My real question is it sustainable? Will you keep it up? When the lights go down and nobody's watching, will you still be there to support these businesses in a way that you haven't? And then finally, I just think it's incredible financial opportunity for investors to invest in these businesses. They don't get a lot of opportunities. People aren't looking at them, and it's a wonderful return on your investment. And they're scrappy, right? They've had to do and survive with very little. So they're going to work their behinds off.
Yep, the most entrepreneurial possible.
And you're right on target, Tam, on it's a return on your investment.
It's good business. And then you get to do good on top of that, and it's just good business for you. And I thought one of the questions was about entrepreneurship, and in my mind it was, and if it didn't, I made up a question for you, Nathan.
I love it.
Black people have entrepreneurial roots because a lot of times, and it comes out of slavery, quite frankly, and it's a good part that they were able, not that slavery was good, I don't want anyone chopping my words, but that they had to oftentimes buy their freedom, right? And so when they were able to, so they and in food service, they were selling. When I was a kid, I didn't understand what all these, when we go up and down 35, why these people were selling watermelons. And I didn't get it because they started off that way from years ago. And so, and it just, as an adult, it gives me a profound sense of honor in that we have survived in the toughest of circumstances. And so I most certainly have hope that we will survive a pandemic as well.
Well, and I really, really hope that, I mean, at the systems level, right? If it's a systems level change, you don't, it's like turning a bigger ship. Hopefully if this kind of funding becomes available in larger quantities, those returns are undeniable, whether you're investing in women, Black, brown, any minority group, the returns are undeniable. I mean, 2.3 times higher returns for women entrepreneurs in most cases and things like that. So, I think hopefully this is systems level change that's happening as a result of the year that we just saw. And that makes it harder to turn it around or hide it once the lights go off again. I would really, really like that. So, Jared.
Sorry, I saw Kelly posted a question over here about, are there any small scale urban farmers and whether or not we're going to be able to implement vertical farming and things like that. I have to apologize because this really puts me on a soapbox that I've had for a while around this. And that is, I think there's a lot of thinking around how technology is going to solve all of these systems level issues. Like, why can't we just grow all of our food in an urban box and everything will be fine, right? Well, there's a lot of underlying layers there that are systematic and system-wide issues, like the fact that vertical farming is extremely capital intensive. It requires access to an extremely high amount of capital to build the infrastructure to go do that. And because of the systematic issues that we're facing, access to that capital is limited to a few. So the ability to go utilize that and solve the problem in that way is kind of underlined by the larger systemic issue of why a lot of this happens in the first place, because of a lack of access to capital. So, I personally think that buying a seed, sticking it in the ground, growing something and selling it is probably the most democratic entrepreneurial endeavor you can possibly do, because there is nothing preventing anyone from buying a seed, sticking it in the ground and growing it. Now, you can argue about access to land and everything else, don't get me wrong, but I'm saying to the extent you take something that is so simple and so accessible to everyone, and then take that and wrap a massive capital requirement around it, you then just shield a massive part of the population from access to that way to solve what is otherwise a problem that can be solved in other ways much more equitably. And so I didn't mean to sorry, Kelly, I didn't mean to jump on that question for you at all, but I just think that whenever I say systems level thinking, I think it's not just the food system as a how does food move through the system, but how are the systems that support the food system? How do those work? And to the extent that we alienate or exclude people from those from an equity standpoint, then we're not bettering the food system. We're actually damaging it in my mind.
Absolutely.
So I just want to throw that out there because that's a very specific question that I've had raised a lot. And those are some of the things we've thought about.
Brandy had a follow-up. She said, is that capital more than it costs to buy land in Central Texas?
Let me solve the other big, huge misconception about farming. And that is, just like in the capital side, the big misconception is there's not enough money out there. The large misconception around farming is I can't find any dirt to farm. I know all kinds of people that have land that would love for someone to farm on it so they can get the 1D1 tax valuation write-off on it. I can put you on some land. That is no problem at all. So land access is actually not an issue. Land ownership is a very large issue. That is a completely different issue that gets us way down a rat hole of generational systemic issues that we are way bumping up against time to get into. But, land access is actually not an issue. Land ownership is a very large issue for sure. And so to answer that part of it.
This is the best.
Good. I'm so glad that we can have some chuckle about a very, very major issue.
I know I'm going to get myself into trouble, but yes, very serious issue. Terrible.
So on the theme of capital for small business, I do want to mention that we have one product. It's commercial real estate loan product. It's we call it the 504. It's a federal SBA program, but it is to buy or build your commercial property. And so we have helped Jardine Foods in Buda move and build their manufacturing plant. We helped Nighthawk Frozen Foods build their facility with all their refrigerated panels. We've helped several hen houses in the Gonzales area with the capital. This is low interest and 20 years. And so right now that interest rate is about 2.4%. And so a lot of the banks will drive the customer to the program that will make the bank the most money. We drive the customer to the program that saves them the most money and helps them grow. So I just don't want to, I think I would be remiss in not mentioning that we have used that product again and again for food producers, food manufacturers, and it could even be retail. It could be, we've done a grocery store. We've done barbecue. We worked on Elgin sausage with their expansion into Bastrop. I mean, so it can be a whole variety. And then we have our own products, separate products, where we can do a participation with the bank. The bank will put 50% and we'll put 50%. So we did a crawfish farm with an entrepreneur and booked that straight up. And our other cases, we can split it 50-50. So with a nonprofit like us, we will hold the hand of our customer and determine what's in their best interest and what's going to save them the money so they can continue to grow. And I just wanted to kind of share that and put it out there.
Rosa, I'm so glad you did, because I didn't know that. This is a good learning opportunity for me, so I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah, Tamale Addiction is a manufacturer and a small tamale processor in Manor, and he just got a contract and he has the opportunity to go nationwide with some tamale kits. And so we do have a lot of experience in the food industry, in the hospitality industry, and medical, several other areas.
That's awesome. With the 4 minutes we have left, I know we have some good conversation going on over in the chat. Rosa, thank you for mentioning that. If you have anything else or anybody else has any resources or organizations that you think people should be aware of as they continue to explore this, I would love for y'all to share that so people can take that as a takeaway with them.
It's a very exhaustive list. I can't think of one or two in particular,
Yep, I hear you. Well, then
Our website in the chat. So
perfect.
I'm just going to mention, because we don't know when COVID will end, small businesses need to ask for support from their lender. So we had 50% of our portfolio asked for deferment, and we said yes, quickly, easily. And we took them off their loan payments for 6 months, and then we evaluated, and some went 9 months, and some have gone the whole 10 months.
Yeah.
But again, you have to ask, and a few of our businesses have asked for restructured. Their interest rate was a little higher, and because of the recession, we're willing to lower that interest rate and accommodate that customer. So our small businesses need to be asking, because their bank should be helping them, and our nonprofit certainly is. We're committed to their.
and
to their
ask early. Ask early as you can know that you're in trouble.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Don't wait until
Ask
you're
right
2 months
away.
past due to ask for it. Ask ahead of time. That shows planning and forethought. Yeah. And I'll add on to that. I know we're right up against time, but I will say we've done 45, 47 fundings of different food system companies around Central Texas for the most part. And I am very proud to say that we have had one default. And that was the smallest loan that we ever did. And we went into it knowing it was probably going to be philanthropy. But I will tell you, the reason that we have only had one fault is because we are very willing to put someone in deferment. We're very willing to work with someone. If you will just work with lenders, borrowers as a lender, pay you back. They want to pay you back. No one wants to be the person that defaults on a loan. So, I just throw that out there as, if you ask and you're proactive in it, as long as you're not banking with Chase or Wells Fargo or something like that, you might be really shocked with how cooperative they would be and helping you get through it, because it's in their interest to not lose you as a customer in default. They'll work with you.
We are up against time. This was such a good conversation. Tam, Jared, Rosa, thank you so much for educating me on this. And thanks to everybody else for coming to hang out with us. I'm excited to keep learning from you in the future. And thanks for all the great work that y'all do.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be on the panel with these ladies. I'm blown away.
Good. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank y'all.